we don't really know apart from this tactical team member. We don't know if the father was arrested, if he's one of them, and there were two other people. The one person who was in the police audio transcript who was proned out, and the third guy who was down near the firehouse at the end of the entrance to the school, who was the pupil saw him lying on the ground handcuffed. So I know that Lieutenant Paul Vance has stated that, you know, people will be arrested in this kind of a situation until they can prove, you know, people who are wandering around and can't be easily identified are going to be arrested. I know that that's the case, but that doesn't really explain this either. That's a bit of a general kind of fob-off answer, and it doesn't answer what we think are legitimate questions here about who these people were. But put in context, the reason that we're suspicious and the reason why we're looking at the possibility of more shooters is because, like we said, that evidence of two people seen running past the gym, two shadows running past the gym, the fact that a few people were arrested, but also the story that Adam Lanza, this 20-year-old weakling nerd with little or no gun training, could have carried off this kind of a shooting, this kind of a gone on this kind of killing spree,
on such a scale,
with such precision and dexterity in the use of large assault weapons, doesn't really
make any sense.
It doesn't fit together very well in our minds. Let's say that. It's, because, well, I mean, let's leave it up to the readers. I mean, the listeners. I mean, does that make sense to you? I know, you know, technically, a 20-year-old person, male, could go and kill a bunch of kids, but
we're talking about a shooting where 30 people were hit. Of the 30, 28 were killed. So whoever did this only left 2 people wounded.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Adam Lanza had no gun training. They did try to insinuate that Adam Lanza had gun training because they said that his mother took him to gun ranges. But that later turned out to be untrue.
I think we've got a call here. We're just going to take a call from someone who... Hello, caller?
Hello.
We don't have anybody.
No. Oh.
We should have somebody, but apparently we don't. Hello? Well, we'll carry on.
That was what stunned me, that the police arrived and they described seeing a mind-numbing quantity of spent shell casings on the school floor, suggesting that hundreds of rounds have been fired in a shooting carried out by one person in at most 10 minutes, although some timelines would really, that's stretching it. I think it could even have been a much shorter time span than that. So we're looking at this and we're thinking, is this really plausible? It's not just about...
I think we might have another caller here. I don't know if it's the same person. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
What's your name?
Hi, this is Lisa Giuliani.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi,
Welcome.
Niall. Hi, Joe. I just wanted to ask you a question, not to interrupt your show. This is going really well, this discussion. I wanted to first congratulate you on the launching of Sott Talk Radio, and it's really an interesting discussion. I wanted to ask you to get into Anderson Cooper's debunking of this also, but I wanted to comment that the lack of evidence on the scene to support the official story is also another reason why people should question the official story. And it seems to me that Anderson Cooper is doing what was done similarly with 9/11, where they want to try to get people to stop questioning the official story when the official story actually doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. I mean, when I watched that Anderson Cooper kind of hit piece, if you want to call it, on the Sandy Hook conspiracy theorists. I mean, I was a bit torn in the sense that I know there's a lot of crazy conspiracy theories out there that we don't agree with, but it was really disingenuous in the way that he came across as saying, we usually wouldn't give attention to this, but we are doing it because it's so. We're giving some attention to it because it's just so insulting to the families and stuff. But I mean, that was totally unbelievable, because the only reason he would give attention to it is to debunk it. It's to in some way spin it, to put a negative spin on it. So
that's exactly what they did with 9/11. They said it was disrespectful to the family members and survivors of 9/11 to question the official story. And essentially, they try to just stifle all questions and get people to stop talking and wondering about it. And frankly, that other armed gunman, the man they found in the woods, for them to be marginalize the fact that he was even there at all. And not follow up on that. Just that alone, I keep asking myself, why was he there at all? He just responded, and they're just going to let that kind of fade out,
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's very true what you're saying about Cooper, and I mean, Cooper has his own CIA. Or there's allegations of him having some kind of a CIA connection or background. So I mean, it's not surprising that he would.
Oh, he did. He spent 2 summers as an internee when he was in his college days.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
But what stood out for me is that in a way Cooper was right, because he honed in on the one thing that is pretty crazy about what's being said in the alternative media about Sandy Hook, namely that it was all a hoax. And this is what he was focusing on, this idea that there were crisis actors brought in, that the parents were not really who they said they were. They were actually all hired actors. They weren't really upset about what had happened. Of course, he could hold that up as representative of any questioning about Sandy Hook, and
Correct.
Then say, look, they're all crazy. And
right, but what they do is they go after the most easily knocked down theories that are being disseminated to the public, and I've received stuff about that too, that these are crisis actors, that this never even really happened, and all this stuff, and they go after those most easily knocked down theories, and then they sort of lump them in with the other more valid substantive questions being asked, and they don't address those. They just go after the straw man.
Absolutely. That professor that had made the comments, he's a tenured professor at Florida Atlantic University, James Tracy. I mean, he made some reference to these actors. He wasn't laying it on so thick, and his main point was, and I quote him, he says, "News media failed to thoroughly investigate every aspect of what happened in Newtown." I don't see that as an inflammatory statement or a suggestion that the news media should do that, and it's a true statement. It's like what you're saying, Lisa, that I mean, they go for the only real investigation they do of it or exposure they give to it is the official line. They ignore the unanswered questions, and if they are going to go any deeper, they're going to go deeper into the crazy conspiracy theories.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck with your new show, and I'm not going to hijack any more of this time.
No
Very
problem.
good to hear you guys.
Thanks for
calling. Thanks for calling, Lisa.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, yeah, Lisa gave us a bit of an introduction there to, we may as well deal with it right now, these crazy conspiracy theories around Sandy Hook. I mean, the most obvious one that this Anderson Cooper person tried to use to tar any investigation, any independent investigation into Sandy Hook was the idea that's going around that all of the parents of the Sandy Hook children are actors. Some people are even saying that no children were killed at all, that it was essentially one massive big theater. And I mean, I really don't appreciate these people at all. And unfortunately, I was pretty shocked to see just how far and wide this idea had spread and taken hold in terms of it had taken hold of people that I previously had thought had half an ounce of sense, because you cannot turn around and say, oh, look, the parents of these children don't seem to be crying. For example, what's his name, Parker?
Robbie Parker.
Robbie Parker, the father of Emily Parker, who was shot. Him kind of laughing a little bit to someone before he made give his statement to the press and stuff, and then other parents and family members of the children who had been killed, because they didn't have red eyes, they weren't crying, they were kind of smiling and laughing, and therefore they were actors. They were basically putting it all on. And I mean, for a start, these people who promote these ideas seem to have no understanding whatsoever of normal human emotion and the way human beings will react under extremely traumatic circumstances, under a lot of pressure, under a lot of strain. For example, in situations that are extremely traumatic for a human being, there's this phrase that I mentioned this in one of the articles I wrote. There's this phrase that I think a lot of people know, which is, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And that speaks directly to human nature under these kind of circumstances, where you feel like you're in such a state of shock, or you've been traumatized so much that in order to just try and keep yourself buoyed up and functional for a while, you'll tend to act slightly differently than the way you feel, or exactly the opposite of the way you feel. Like you'll try to laugh at things or buoy yourself up a little bit, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. I.e., if you don't laugh in this kind of situation, if you don't laugh, you'll break down completely.
Exactly.
So,
it's a completely normal reaction.
And they weren't able to come to that conclusion. I mean, they weren't able to use their brains and see that the most obvious explanation in this situation was the most simple one. But so they just push this idea of actors, and even the kids weren't killed at all. It was one giant theater. But in presenting that thesis, they don't even follow it through to its logical conclusion. If you're going to present a thesis, you have to follow it through and explain where it ultimately leads you. If it leads you to, okay, for example, the parents of the Sandy Hook victims were actors. So what does that mean? It means that they had brought in literally dozens of people who were appearing on the national and international media in front of the world, basically, and obviously in front of, the local community, and claiming to be residents, long-term residents of Sandy Hook, when they weren't. They had never been in Sandy Hook. They weren't the parents. And so in that case, how does anyone explain how those people wouldn't be exposed? What about all the other actual residents of Sandy Hook? Would none of them ever speak up after seeing these fake Sandy Hook parents on TV over and over again and say, hang on a minute, that guy claiming to be